Episode 2, Katembe, Jesus in a War. Thank you for listening to Illuminate, a podcast by Hands at Work in Africa. Each year as we approach Christmas, there is a season of anticipation and preparation for the coming of Jesus. The creator of heaven and earth come to us as a baby so that his creation would be reconciled to him. We call this season Advent. And during Advent, this podcast channel comes to you in the form of Illuminate. This year, we want to share about where we work, the types of communities that we are called to see Jesus bring life where it looks the bleakest. Just as Jesus came to bring life to a broken world, Hands at Work seeks out the most broken places in Africa to bring life to the poorest of the poor and most vulnerable people by way of his church, both internationally and locally. On our website, you can find a video with the same theme which focuses on a community in Zimbabwe called Tsatse. In this podcast series, we will take you to the Democratic Republic of Congo. We will visit 3 communities in the Goma area. George Snyman, a co-founder of Hands at Work, has spent a considerable amount of time there this year. We're about to hear George talking to a group of volunteers in South Africa on October 30th. Let's listen to George discussing the people and places where we work and what God is busy doing there.
I want us to go to Katembe because you may wonder what happened to the children in Katembe. They were surrounded by many soldiers, so they couldn't get out. So they were stuck in there. Our leader, our coordinator is a husband and wife. It's Mutobe and Furaha. They had no food. They were locked. So every month end, Mutobe at night, you will start going down the mountain. Sometimes they will shoot at him, but he will go right down to Sake. And then Bindu will wait for him there. And then he will get all the food for a month. They pack it on motorbikes. I'm telling you, they get on that motorbikes and they don't look back. And then the motorbikes will take them, God protected them. Sometimes they were stopped by soldiers and they had to pay. But never were they shot, by God's grace. And they came through, and then there will be food. Mutobe did that every month. He will go down to Sake to go and get food. Because he said, I'm not leaving the children. Katembe, during the war, they were bombed by their own government. Because the government shot, they threw bombs. They were bombed by the rebels. It's not that the government wanted to bomb them. The government wanted to bomb the soldiers here. But the bombs will fall in Katembe. Then the rebels moved into Katembe. The general was living in Katembe with his soldiers. And the people were there while they were there. So they were shot at all the time. Not one of our children died. Not one of our grannies died. You go into that community, you look where all the bombs fell. You know what was the safest place in the whole community? Our care point. You know, the chief gave us a care point. Somebody even said, that's just where nobody wants to go. So we didn't mind. We got a piece of land. We built. Mutobe showed me the place where our care point was. It was the only place in the village where bombs couldn't fall. You know, God said, I will prepare a place for you. In the day of trouble, I will be with you. But even though God protected them, he still expected Mutobe to put his life and to go down to Sake every month. I gave Bibles out and I gave Mutobe a Bible. One day I came from Holy Home visits and there Mutobe sat. When I was here in Buhimba in a refugee camp, Mutobe came back down all the way to here. And I said to him, why are you here? He said, I came to see you. I said, why? He said, I want to be baptized. I said, why did you come all the way here? He said, I came because I found Jesus, the Jesus you spoke about. I said, where did you find him in the Bible? He said, I found him in Isaiah, in the Old Testament. He said, I read in Isaiah, you will go through the fire, it will not burn you. He accepted Jesus in a war.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our chat around what we've heard from George as he shared with us a few weeks ago on Goma. My name's Dan and I've been part of Hands for a number of years now and serve here with my wife and my 4 children.
Hey everyone, this is Sanda, and I am so privileged to be back again with you guys this week. And this week we have a very special guest with us. I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Thank you very much, Sanda. My name is Prague, and Goma has got a really special place in my heart. I always look forward to hear what is happening in GRC Goma.
What struck you?
What struck me is how God is faithful and how God protects his people. Sometimes we just see stories from the Bible, like the story of Moses, how he really rescued the people of Israel. They came to the point where they look back, they see the Egyptian, they are coming. And then they look in front of them, they were Red Sea, and they didn't know what to do. But God uses Moses in a such a way that he said, what do you have in your hand? And I think even in this village, they had Matobi. God uses him. Even when he was driving those motorbike in those mountains, he was with him. And where there's God, there's no fear. He had that courage to drive down to go and get food every day for the children, every time. The courage and the boldness, how he drove down to go and get the food and to say, I'm not going to run, but I'm going to stand for my people here. I'm the only one who can do this. He put himself on the line. That really stood out for me.
That's so good, Prags. I love it. I guess what I was thinking is it's not like Matobi's an amazing hero. Matobi's God just seems very big. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I could even say Matobi's God is bigger than my God, because the trust that Matobi has in his God to see him up and down the mountain, I don't expect. I think maybe my God's smaller than that. I'd almost say it's not like Matobi's braver than us. It's just like he has a bigger God. His God is the God that we read about in the Bible, like you said, that can see you through the Red Sea and that can raise the dead to life. Whereas maybe I've made my God so much smaller that I fear more because my God's smaller. Does that make sense?
You know, Lord is so good at strategically positioning us in places where he wants us. Uncle George mentioned that the community said, it's just a place. No one deems it as anything. But it was positioned in such a way that the bombs never fell there. It was from a place where nobody wanted to go to being the safest place in the community that protected our children, our care workers. That says something of the communities that he calls us to, but also the type of spaces in our community that he allots to us to be able to use as places to turn to love centers. It's not that he just gives us those places, but he actually protects them. He watches over them, and we often maybe don't see what he protects us from, but I think this is such a stark reality of the dangers that lurk in our communities and how he actually protects us. So yeah, I thought that was very encouraging.
Yeah, not only did God place our care point in such a place and protect it, but God loved Katembe so much that he gave them Matobi.
Yeah.
He spoke to Matobi, and as Matobi fell deeper in love with Jesus, his bravery grew. The more he loved Jesus, the more he was willing to risk.
Also, the time the war started, they were just locked up. And I think it is very encouraging for me to see. Sometimes we don't see miracles like that, but that was miracle because God wanted them to be where they are and to be in Katembe, but not to go anywhere.
Yeah, you're right. And across the world, many people had the privilege to be part of that. For Matobi, it was a mountain that you had to come down and police blocks that you had to get through. And so for some of us, our part in this story was to pray, and it didn't cost us as much. The risks weren't as big. Other people gave. They responded to this call. They spoke out. I guess what I'm saying is that God required something of Matobi, but he doesn't just require something of Matobi. He required something of all of us and does require something of all of us. And it looks different. For some of us, it's a mountain and a roadblock. You know, in your world, for instance, it's fighting against cultures and very real risks in our community. It's fighting for girls that are being taken for early marriage. God says, are you going to go down and up the mountain? God still requires something of each one of us, whether it's in Canada or Australia or the UK or New Zealand or Germany or the US.
You know, he was doing that before he even accepted Jesus Christ. He was doing that, coming down to the mountain, getting food, taking up there. Even Moses, when Moses was called to go into the mountains, as he was going, he came down and he said, I've met him. Exactly like Moses, when he went down and God gave him the 10 commandments. And the Bible says when Moses came, his face was radiant. It pictured how Matobi was smiling, came in to say, I've met Jesus.
Yeah.
Where? In Isaiah. You walk the road of the mountain. And this time the mountain was different. Even if he was staying there, but the mountain was different. He came down and that's where he said, I've met Jesus up there.
So good.
Exactly how God met Moses in the mountain.
So good, Preston. Thanks.
Matobe is such an inspiration to all of us to respond in obedience to whatever the Lord is calling us to, whatever the mountaintop is or the valley low is. He's calling us to something. We can take such inspiration in Matobe's life. And so we hope you guys are inspired by this, and we would love to have you guys again next week for our next episode as we dig deeper into what the Lord is doing in Goma. Bless you all.